I don't have to unmute, right? Okay. Oh, good, for a change. Hi, everybody. It's a beautiful evening. I just want to, first of all, apologize to you. I had a senior moment last week because I remember I made the announcement that we're starting the Shame series tonight. I forgot that there's still one more talk left in the personal growth series. So, it's what happens when you pass 65. You start getting those senior moments. What can I tell you? Anyway, John knows what I'm talking about. Good job, John. But anyway, I do want to mention a couple of things before I get started. I do want to tell you that next week I'll be starting the series on shame for real next week. Okay, and we'll be talking about shame, what it is, and then it's kind of a neat little series I really enjoy doing because I see shame as a core of a lot of things. So we'll click with that. All right, I'm going to start off by doing the reading tonight from The Language of Letting Go, and I'm going to use part of today's reading. Step 11. So through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. Praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out means that we ask on a daily basis to be shown our plan for the day. We also ask our source for the power we need to carry that through. We will definitely get a yes to both requests. We don't ask other people to show their will for us. We ask our higher power. Then we trust that we are empowered to carry out God's will. I have learned through difficult and good times that this step carries me through. When I don't know what to do next, God does. Working this step one day at a time will take us to places we could never have traveled on our own. Simple acts done daily in accordance to God's will for us lead to a grand plan for our life. Today, I will focus on asking God to show me what God wants me to do. I will ask God for the power to do that. I will go ahead and get the job done. God, help me please let go of my fears about living only one day at a time. Help me trust that when life is lived simply and in trust, a beautiful mosaic called life will be woven. I am being divinely led, guided, and above all, cared for. I want to start off tonight with that reading because when we talk about personal growth, I go back just to the beginning a little bit. I mentioned the fact that the most beautiful thing about the process of recovery is our spiritual growth. And I mentioned this to you before when I use the word spiritual. The word spiritual actually means, if you translate it from Latin and Greek, it means to come to an awakening of my personal spirit, to come to a knowledge of myself as a person. And personal knowledge, one of the beautiful things on the face of the earth, but also our personal growth is so powerful. I've said it so many times, the ultimate person we can work on in life is ourselves. And from there, everything else flows. And so I've learned over the years, and I'm grateful, I'm very grateful, especially to the 12 steps to our recovery program, because you notice the steps. There are 11 steps for us to work on ourselves. And then in the 12th step, it says, having had a spiritual awakening, having done your work, then carry a message. And so we work on ourselves and continue this process of personal growth, which we do a little bit at a time. I'll talk about that tonight. And we do it in the process. Everything else kind of falls into place. And so I kind of want to finish up this series on personal growth and talk about something that we find on the walls of many recovery rooms. They're referred to as the slogans. Now, the slogans, like the serenity prayer we talked about last week, are simple little principles that give us this beautiful, beautiful way of enjoying life and celebrating life. The first one we talk about tonight is called Easy Does It. Take your time, my father used to say. Slow down, relax. Where you going? You know what's so amazing about these slogans? My father drilled them into my head way back when I was a kid. Of course, I didn't listen too much back then. You know what it's like. Okay, Dad. Okay, Dad. But later on, it's funny how seeds get planted and things get planted, then eventually start coming out. And I've learned the most important thing about life, and believe me, it's a tough one for me, is slow down, smell the roses, take it easy, do a little bit at a time. The most simple way of living. And that's where the other two phrases come into play. We have to learn the beautiful principle of living only one day at a time. You know, I've been around a long time and I've learned so many beautiful things, but some of the great old timers in this program taught me some beautiful stuff. They used to say the most important thing to realize in life is that you only have one day. We had a guy, down in South Philly years ago. He's not with us anymore now, but we used to joke with him and we used to say, how much time do you have in recovery? We used to joke and say, 500 years? He'd just look at us and smile and he'd say, my recovery began at 4:15 this morning when I woke up. I just have today. And I love that old philosophy because really in reality, yesterday is over. Tomorrow's not here yet. So we have to live in the moment, or live in today, and try to keep it simple and not drive ourselves crazy. And that's why these first three slogans, easy does it, take your time, one day at a time, just kind of process the life and keep it simple. The simpler, the better. I kind of add to that a little bit. I always say the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. And sometimes, we got to get a little bit stupid to finally understand stuff, which means we got to learn to get out of the way. See, I've got an Italian disease. It's called uncapitosa. I call it brickhead. It took me a long time to get in touch with that. That's why everything in life has to happen just a little bit at a time. It's got to penetrate. And my father told me something a long time ago. And I made the big mistake of working for my dad in the summertime. And my father was a section gang foreman on the railroad. And at the end of my work in my summer, he would always give me a going away gift for school. He'd give me a rock. I said, what do I do with a rock? You put it on your desk, and whenever you don't want to study, I want you to look at that rock. Remember something very powerful and very beautiful. To penetrate a rock, it takes time. Because a rock is too solid. You see, you take a ball peen hammer and you smack at it and you smack at it and you smack at it until eventually it starts to crack, until eventually it starts to pulverize. But that doesn't happen so quickly. And so I learned this in recovery. I've learned that sometimes we got to take everything through the back door. I look at my own life. I went to my first 12-step meeting in 1969. That's a long time ago. It was Al-Anon. I was a young priest. I was 29 years old. I went there because my pastor was an alcoholic. And of course, in my own cockiness, I wanted the people at Al-Anon to tell me how to fix him. Those strange people at Al-Anon kept telling me to work on me. And of course, I didn't need any work. LJ can tell you that. I don't need any work. The bottom line is, I didn't understand what they were talking about. But they did one thing, they planted seeds. And for some crazy reason, I kept going back. And then later on, when I got into recovery, even when I was in AA recovery, I had this other part of my disease, and Howie understands this. It's called, I was a two-stepper. Howie knows what a two-stepper is, right, Hal? I did the first step and the 12th. I need the 10 in between, but we'll get to them later. I was too busy saving everybody, rescuing everybody, running around like a nut, making myself half crazy. And the bottom line was, I literally still didn't get it. And I find it interesting because it was only when I got into I actually had a nervous breakdown during that time. And a doctor even said to me in the hospital, he said, Vince, I'm still a priest. He said, You're spiritually dead. You have no idea who you are. You got to get a life. I know what he was talking about. Because how can I be spiritually dead and I was a priest? He says, you have no idea who you are. You're running around like a nut trying to figure life out. And the amazing part about it is I found out later he was right. But see, I wasn't ready to hear it. But I finally got into my real recovery back in 86 and 87 when I got involved in my third recovery program, which is Eating Disorders Anonymous, my eating disorder program. And as a result, then I began to realize and finally do my work. Here comes the slogans again. My sponsor, Richard, God rest his soul, this afternoon I gave the lecture at Starting Point. It was kind of neat doing it in the lecture hall because Richard's picture and his plaque were right next to me. So I could talk about him and even wave to him at the same time. But the beautiful thing about that was Richard used to always say to me, he said, Vince, recovery is a process. You do it a little bit at a time. Then it stays with you. And I'm learning that less is better. And I used to drive him crazy because my compulsiveness, and my craziness, I want to do that much at one time. He used to say, nope, just that much. If you get something accomplished today, you've made progress. We'd always talk about progress, not perfection. Take your time, relax, keep it simple, do what you can, and just do it one day at a time. I love that today because I realize, we only have today. I don't know a thing about tomorrow. All I know is I'm here, I'm on the Zoom, I'm with all of you, and I'm living the day of today. And, it's amazing sometimes how we look at these things, we see how God teaches us stuff. And when you learn to live one day at a time, you learn to live with an open mind. You learn to live the process of life. Life kind of takes you where you're supposed to go. So you allow yourself just to go through the process, to experience it. And that's where I love that beautiful phrase of keep it simple. Don't try to do too much. Just relax. Another great and beautiful slogan, I never understood it. I used to look at this on the wall all the time. The slogan is think, think, think. I always thought, what are they telling me to do that for? First, they tell me not to think. Now they're telling me to think. But now I do understand it. It's teaching me to work through things, take my time, think something out, process it. I have a disease. I'm sure all of us in this room have the same disease. It's called foot and the mouth disease. We have a tendency to say things and do things compulsively. And as a result, later on, we have to try to dig our way out. It's very difficult pulling that foot out of your mouth, isn't it? After you've opened it. And boy, I'm a culprit with this for years of my life. I used to promise everybody everything. And I even know what I promised after a while. I got myself into a lot of trouble. But I'm realizing today how important it is to work through things, take your time. So we have to learn, this slogan is teaching me not to react to everything, but to learn how to respond. But that takes patience, that takes time, that takes going slow, that takes letting things work their way. But there's what I call the big three, the culprits to these slogans, the things that get us into a lot of trouble. And I really believe all three of them are based on something called illusion. We have the illusion of control, the illusion of fear, and the illusion of worry. Now, being Italian, I know when I got born, my parents gave me a PhD in fear, guilt, worry, all those wonderful things. But I realized today, those illusions, the illusion of control, the illusion of fear, the illusion of worry. How many times have we worried about things and tried to figure them out, made ourselves half crazy? And then later on, it all worked out. It wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be. There's that other phrase called, "we make a mountain out of a molehill." But our head does this. So we have to learn. So I'm really going to think and work things through. I got to learn another great principle, and that is I need help. I need people in my life to help me process through things. I can't do it on my own. That is one of the biggest mistakes that many of us make. We try to do it on our own, and it doesn't work. So we have to learn the value of processing, to working through stuff, to sharing, to talking about it, and to take our time and let things kind of work their way. I've often said we have to let things happen in God's time, not in our time. But let's face it, the reading tonight, everything in life, the steps tell us we're not in charge. I don't want to be in charge. It's totally amazing. I tell you a story. In the morning, when I say my morning prayers, I always say the 3rd, the 7th, and the 11th step prayers. And I've often told people this over and over and over again. The 11th step prayer is a very dangerous prayer, because in the 11th step prayer, you always say, "Your will, not mine." It means we're not in charge. We have to learn how to stop figuring it out. And so I also tell God every morning, I have my nickname for God. I call God the boss. And so when I say my prayers in the morning now, one of my prayers is, I look at God as my employer. He's the employer, I'm the employee. So in the morning I say, "Okay, boss, what do you got in store for me today?" I warn him I'm a codependent. That means I got a scheduling book and my day is scheduled. But God has this wonderful sense of humor. He always screws up my day. He keeps changing everything. Today was a good example of that. Good God, nothing went the way I thought it was going to go today. But you know what? I used to get upset at that, go through a lot of changes, beat the hell out of myself. But I'm realizing something. It's a gift. Thank you, God. It just means I wasn't supposed to get done the things I was supposed to get done today, and that I have to let go and just realize what's supposed to happen today happened today. But I get caught up in worry. Did I did it right? Did I do it wrong? Did I do it this way? Yeah, no, stop. Take a break. I've often said one of the greatest gifts we could do in recovery is before you go to bed at night, stick your head in the freezer just for maybe about 4 minutes and let it freeze up. Okay, Andrew, don't forget that, all right? You got to make this thing freeze up so we stop thinking. And yet we have to learn to think, like the program says, but to think through processing, to work through things and come up with a positive response. That's why I love these simple little slogans that teach me so much about life. And the other one, which is very beautiful, and again, once again, it takes a while to learn these things, is "but for the grace of God." But for the grace of God. When you get ready to judge somebody else and get angry at somebody else, and you see things that are going on that you don't like, just remember to say it to yourself, "but for the grace of God." Because you never know where things are going to go. And sometimes some of the most toughest situations in life, some of the things that are difficult to deal with, are some of the greatest teachers. If we can just try to live by that phrase, "but for the grace of God." There's so much for us to be grateful for. And yet so many times we forget. We take so much for granted. And I've learned over the years, I don't want to take life for granted. I want to try to live it just a little bit at a time and learn something new and discover something new. And that's one of the reasons why I love being around people like you, every one of you, because every one of you has been a teacher to me, connected with each other. I always love learning new things, but sometimes I get confused. My granddaughter and a lot of my young kids today, they have their own language now. You know that, don't you? They have all these abbreviations on everything when they text you. I have no idea what they're talking about. So I have to get them to translate for me. So as a result, I'm starting to get it a little bit. But sometimes I always say, well, this is another language. And yet it's called, yeah, I know they have a name for it. I forget the name, but I'm learning it a little bit at a time. And so things change. You know, I was laughing. My grandson, who's now 26, got married 4 years ago. And I was at his wedding out in Montana, and he had a disc jockey, you know, after the ceremony and everything, and they had a dance. Okay, I was looking for, I love the dance. I said, wow. So then this kid that was the disc jockey probably was about 19 years old, I guess, 18 years old. I don't know. He's playing all this music. It's like, wow. Blah, 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 blah. And everybody's jumping up and down, Joe. I said, my God in heaven. I says, it really wasn't. I said, this is not dancing. This is an aerobics class. And so finally I went over to him and I said, can I ask you something? He said, sure. I said, well, you know, there's old people here. I'm one of them, I said. There's old people here. Do you have anything nice and slow like Dean Martin or Frank Sinatra or things like that? Nobody said to me, who's that? Hey, I said, you're kidding me. He said, I'm sorry, he said. I'll look around, see if I got something in here. I says, I went back shaking my head. I couldn't take it. You know, I'm learning over the years, though. You know, you have to realize the fact that change is part of life. You got to go with the flow. Do I like it all the time? No. But at the same time, we got to be open to it. See, there's the difference. I don't have to like it, but I can be open to it. I can look back on the past. I can learn from it. I can grow from it. I can be open to it. But there comes a point where I have to simply be able to say, you know, I can't. And then what you do is you ask for help. You ask for guidance. You ask others to help you with it. And so I'm realizing over and over again, there is so much I can learn from younger people. My grandkids are great teachers to me. I'm learning a lot from them today. You know, and sometimes I have to just look at them and say, would you explain it again, please? Maybe a couple more times, then maybe I'll get it. But that's okay. It's all part of it. But it's an adventure. And life is supposed to be that way. You know, my wife and I go walking every night. Met two of our neighbors. And my one neighbor was telling me that her sister, who is 76 years old, is getting a hip replacement. And she's very upset. I said, why? She said, well, she works at a nursing home, you know, giving out food and works at the cafeteria. And she's upset because she won't be able to work. And so she actually asked the people at the nursing home, would it be okay if I come and serve food with my walker? And they said, no, we can't do that. And so they promised her that as soon as she's on her feet again, she can have her job back. She has this adventure. She wants to keep working. She loves what she does. I feel the exact same way. I mean, people say to me, why don't you retire? I said, I am retired. I'm retired in my work. I enjoy it. I like that. You have to realize life is supposed to be lived. I'll never forget, and I tell this story many times, when I was studying to become a priest. I'm going way back now, when I was 19 and 20 years old. And I was in a seminary. I was at Mount St. Mary's Seminary in Emmitsburg, Maryland. And we had this course in philosophy. And the teacher was a guy named Father Pete. He was 92 years old. Now, when you're 20 years old, you look at a 92-year-old and you say, shouldn't he be in a rocking chair on the front porch somewhere? What's he doing in a classroom? What am I going to learn from this guy? I'm going to tell you something. That man had more wisdom than I had on my little finger. I learned so many things from him, but once again, everything he planted in me, things I learned from him, I never really was able to put them into action until later on in my life. Isn't that interesting? We got to be open to new seeds, let things be planted, and later on they come alive. And it's the little things that come alive, the little phrases like these slogans. You know, the other slogan that goes along with that is live and let live. Live your life to the best of your ability. Leave everybody else alone. Let them live their life. You don't have to agree. It's okay. We have to learn to live and let live. I learned so many beautiful things in recovery, the connection. But I've also learned the importance, of looking at, but for the grace of God, and learn to live and let live. It's so easy to judge others. It's so easy to get upset at others. It's so easy to think things they should be where they should be. I mean, many of you who raise children know exactly what I'm talking about. You could have the best plan in the world for your child. You know exactly what you want them to do. And they never follow the plan. They go their own way. And many of us have done exactly that. And sometimes we had to kind of fall down a little bit and get back up again and keep the journey. There's always a fork in the road, and there's always a learning to take place. There's always something new to experience. That's what life is about. And sometimes we got to learn to let go, because some things in life come to an end. And we keep wondering why? Because we have a hard time accepting. And if something comes to an end, it's because if I'm able to let it go, something new will be born. So change is part of the journey and part of life. And that's why I learned today, when I talk about these slogans, about personal growth, about these principles, these concepts to live by. They're so simple, they're not complicated. And yet at the same time, they teach us so much about ourselves and so many beautiful things for us to be able to experience and go through. Now I understand more and more as I'm getting older. I guess I'm getting wiser. I'm beginning to realize some of the principles and things that were taught to me. The old timers looked at life in such a simple way. They enjoyed it. We had a guy in the 4021 Club. I'll never forget him. He probably was in recovery for, I don't know, who knows, a long time. But every time a newcomer would come into the room, he walk up to the newcomer, put his arm around them and say to the newcomer, will you take me to a newcomers meeting? I need one. Here's a gentleman who's been around the rooms for a long time and went to a newcomers meeting every week, because every day is a newcomer. Every day is learning something new. He used to always say the most important people in the rooms of recovery are the newcomers. They're there to be a new teacher, a new concept, a new direction in your life. And that is so important in life too, because sometimes we experience people. Today at the 12 o'clock lecture, this lady came to my lecture today. Now, I haven't seen her in a long time. She came to visit me today. And afterwards, she came up and talked to me. She's 92 years old. She's now living in Florida, but she's been connected with Starting Point for a long time. It was so neat to spend time with her today. And her son brought her to the meeting. It was really neat. And the beautiful part about it was, she was so excited just to be there. To see the excitement in her was unbelievable. And so I gave her a hug. I kissed her hand and I said, welcome home. The beautiful part about the journey of life. We're all interconnected. We're all part of one another. And then she said to me, do you do these things like those people that were on that Zoom thing? And I said, yeah. And so her son said, I'll teach you how to do it, Mom. Don't worry about it. I'll show you how to do it. She said, I'm going back to Florida. It's okay if I come and see you on the machine. I said, sure, not a problem. Okay, come and see me on the machine. That's the fun part about life. And I love the way old timers call it the machine. It's pretty neat. It's called, our computer is now a machine. So I'm learning over life. Isn't it great to be able to laugh, be able to celebrate, just to be able to enjoy the gift of what life really is all about? It's all these simple little things that make life so beautiful and so special and so worthwhile. I don't know about you, but I know when I get caught up in this and I begin to look at these slogans, I look at the principles, the things that were taught to me, I get so excited. I get excited because I'm realizing that my life is getting fuller and fuller today because of these things. But it's a slow process. I look at the 9-step promises in our program. I read them every day to remind me that everything kind of comes to us. It comes to us when it's supposed to. It comes to us in pieces. It comes to us gradually. But we got to make sure we stay away from control, fear, and worry. Let it go. There's so many things in life you have no control over. The world out there, you have no control. Do the best you can, one day at a time. Take care of one another, work together. And that's why when I look at recovery, I look at family. You know, Richard, my sponsor, used to always say, "Hi, family." I love that, because that's what we are. We're family. We're connected to one another. That's really what it's all about. There's nobody better than anybody else. We're all part of the connection. We're all in this together. And so the most important thing to realize in the course of our journey is, there's an old saying, stay the course, keep on the journey. Every once in a while, though, you know, we got this little stubborn thing in us called the ego. We kind of got to have to leave the journey, and then we got to come back again. That's okay. We all got to do that, you know, because I get a little crazy and I want things to happen like right away. And then my father used to say, "Un pazienza vayon." Patience, my son, patience. So right on my desk, at the starting point, I have this big thing that comes down, and the reading is pazienza. It's Italian for patience. I put that there on purpose because my father's photograph is right there, and that's my dad screaming at me and talking to me and trying to teach me, slow down, little boy, take your time. Everything will happen when it's supposed to happen. Just be open, enjoy life, get what you can out of it, enjoy the simple little things, have memories from the past, be open to the future, but enjoy what we have right now. And these slogans just give us the simple ways of looking at this and be able to work within our own selves and realize that everybody who comes into your life comes there to be a teacher. We have to try to be open to it. One day at a time. Take it easy, go slow, keep it simple. Think by processing, by working through stuff. Think before you act. Think before you say something. Take your time and slow down. You know, I used to marvel at my wife. The reason I marveled at her, because I love her, but besides that, I marveled at her because when we first got married, we had 3 teenage stepdaughters, and my wife had this wonderful, wonderful way. Every time the kids would ask her something, she'd always say to them, "Let me think about it." Then we talk about it, and then she'd think about it, and she'd go back and give them a response. But see, the kids wanted her to answer me right away. Yeah, let me think about it. She drove me crazy because I'm Italian. You know, me, I want to jump right in there and do everything for them. Do that. She used to say, slow down, relax, take it easy. You know, we'll do it slowly. So I have a lot of gratitude today, but the most thing I have gratitude for are the gifts. And so when I talk about personal growth, take these slogans, make them part of your life, live them to the best of your ability, but realize they're just simple little principles for us to live our life by. They're simple little ways of us to be able just to take each day, celebrate it with gratitude for the gift of the day, for the gift of where you are today, even for the gift of the things we can't do anymore. You know, it's interesting. We have handicaps. It's part of the journey. Accepting them is hard and adjusting is hard, but it's very spiritual. That's the key to everything we do in life. So as I say my prayer tonight, I just want to pray for each and every one of us that we continue on our journey of personal growth. We continue on our journey of being connected to each other. We continue on our journey of learning and growing from one another. But above all, we're able to accept each other and be able to realize the fact that we are constantly being taught new things and new directions. To be open to the future, have gratitude for the past, but be grateful for whatever today was and whatever we experienced today, with gratitude and with love. So let us pray. God, we come before you tonight in prayer. We ask for your guidance. We ask for your direction. But above all, we ask for your love. We call upon our higher power, the God of our understanding, to walk with us and guide us on our journey. We thank you for all those who have gone before us, all those who are on the walls back at starting point, for all those that are part of our journey and part of our life. We thank you for all the teachers that have come into our life that planted seeds, that helped us continue the process of growth. Please help us to have an open mind. Help us to listen. Help us just to learn something new today and be open to where we're being led. And teach us always just to be open to your will and to realize we're not in charge. We're just people on a journey doing the best we can, one day at a time, in a very simple and beautiful way. So thank you, God, for the gifts, the gift of life, for the gift of one another, for the gift of recovery, and for the gifts of so many things that we have. We come each day to you in the spirit of gratitude and the spirit of love. We pray and we ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
And now I'm going to ask all of you.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God's will, not mine, be done.